Michael Boyd had some UAP videos that he wanted to show. I mean, he was asking if we had available time. And I said, well, our schedule is all booked up. Now we have available time. Michael, are you with us?
So now what's going on here is this is Apache video, and it's in infrared. And basically what I noticed is on the right above the 3 UAPs, which are in the little circle here, there's right in that vicinity, there's 3 UAPs. And I noticed up here on the right is like a vortex, a spinning vortex that you can see there in the infrared. So I drilled down on that. Now, how do I get out of this? Let's see here. Okay, I'm going to show a close-up now. And this is what we see close up of the 3 images. And basically what's going on is they're not, they're basically what the little dots are is they're like little plasma vortexes. And that's why they're not really stable. Let's see here if I got a different one where you can see. Let's see here. Let's try this one. I don't know what's going on. It's taking a while. I think that might be the same one again. Let's see. I thought I had some other ones. So let's see here. So basically, what I should do, let me go look for, unfortunately, I'm doing this on the fly, so it's kind of like I'm not prepared. I'm seeing if I can find the actual original videos to show you. So there's another video where it shows, it's called Rubber Duck. And I'll see if I can show you that. So now we have these 3 little cows over here. And then the rubber duck's going to show up down here at the bottom. And what's cool about it is the rubber duck is cold compared to the background. So that's one of the videos that I'm going to talk about when I have a together presentation, that is. And they have one called A10 Warthog. Let's see here. I can find that one. Oh. Okay, this is back to the Apache one. Now here's the three little vortice circles that that were blowing up when we see those, the bigger view of them close up. This is what they look like in the distance. You can see that they're basically these. It looks like they're running into each other, but they're not. They're actually it appears to be some kind of atmospheric phenomena is what we concluded in our analysis. Let's see here if I can find. Then there's another one where it's warm. It's A10 Warthog, and here's what the UAP looks like in that. It's just a little shorty. And then I have a closer up view of what it's looking like. Which is, again, I think this is some kind of atmospheric phenomena that's going on. And let's see. I missed one. I've covered all of them, but here's the A10 one again. See if this works. Oh, maybe it's just an image. It must just be an image, sorry. Let's see here. That's the phenomenon again. And then you see over here the display, it says WH for white hot. And so here's our UAP. It's in the white hot. So it's warm. And let's see here if I got. I'm just like randomly picking some videos to show you guys. Oh, that one didn't want to go, so oh wait. I guess not. Let's try another one. Okay, there's the A10. You can see the A10 there on the left. So we had to stabilize it to get it to work right. So that's what you're seeing there. Let's do it again. So you see you have the A10 on the left, and then there's the UAP next to it, swimming around. More from the A10. That's the other UAP. This is it's called a La Bruja. It's also been called the Witch. And you'll see what the reason I did this is is that in the black there is some cattle. Some of them are sitting on the ground. And then to the left up there in the image, the white spot, that's the La Bruja UAP. And again, if you look down here on the far bottom left, it says BH for black hot. So the cattle are hot, but the UAP is cold. So here we go. I'll run it again. So notice how fast that cow's walking compared to the UAP. So that UAP isn't going that fast. If you think about it, if you can see the cattle walking in comparison, my conclusion was this thing ain't that fast. Because cattle don't go like 100 miles an hour or something when they're walking. So that's just let me stop share now. Okay, so that's just kind of some examples of the data from the 4 UAPs that the government released. The ones I have are, I have the originals, and they're on some of one of them is an hour and a half long, and it's only about 30 seconds of that hour and a half where you actually see anything. The other ones are shorter, and what I'll try to do is figure out a way to show the short ones in their entirety, and then just the section for the one that's an hour and a half. But I'm going to have to do a little editing on my end first. So, but that's an example of the data. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you, Michael. Thank you. And let me see, David was posting in chat. He said it looks like the UAP generates wake. I'm not sure which one he was talking about, though. You know, I did look up, and I just closed the window. There we go. Apache UAP. So this is written in, this is IFL Science. They were saying this was filmed at midnight on November 6, 2018, around 40 miles northwest of the Arizona city of Tucson during a training flight. And it was captured through specialized military night vision goggles. 3 small dots can be seen moving quickly through the air in an unusual and erratic fashion. So that was what the video was. Arizona, or I'm sorry, Mick West, an administrator at Metabunk, said he thinks that it's birds or potentially bats. So
yeah, well, the birds were doing probably Mach 10.
they're really fast birds.
You saw the little loops, the thing doing the little loop-de-loops, right? That I showed you the close-up. Yeah, I don't think those were any birds I've ever seen. I actually suspect it. So what my research found was, in my previous presentation, I talked about this pre-signal that precedes coronal mass ejection. I don't know if you guys remember that, but essentially what happens is when there's a solar flare, it takes 7 minutes to reach the Earth. But if there's a coronal mass ejection associated with that, part of the corona of the sun is thrown into space at hypersonic speeds, and it takes 3 days for that gravitational wave of protons, accelerated protons, to reach the Earth. Well, it turns out that around 2016, they noticed that about a day and a half before, or a day before the solar flare, on the opposite side of the Earth from the sun, the dark side of the Earth, they observed a decrease in the decay rate in radioisotopes. So certain radioactive materials, the decay rate slowed. And so, and essentially when I was doing my experiments with gravitomagnetism, and I was chatting with Hal, I found some examples where the gravitational induction signal preceded the electromagnetic signal from the defect's edge. So there was essentially there's a pre-signal, that something that happens a day before. So what I did is I went on the space weather station and looked at what was going on around that date, the 2018, or I don't remember the exact date off the top of my head, but it's on the display. And what I found was the next day, there was a huge coronal mass ejection in that big chunk of the southern hemisphere of the sun was thrown out into space. So what I suspected is that there was those were plasma vortices that were produced by atmospheric anomalies occurring on opposite side of this, on the dark side of the Earth from the sun the day before, which is exactly where we were. As you describe, it was like 5 minutes till midnight is what the time showed. And you could see that basically it was right in the right time frame. So I like to look for natural explanation for things before we start talking about, is this an artificial phenomena that was created by, like, other entities from us, put it that way, right? And what I suspected is it was natural, that it was a natural phenomena that was causing those three little dots, those little hot spots that showed up on the IR. And basically what it is when you have a vortex at the vertex, the current increases. And so what happens when you increase the current, it's like kind of like if you in construction, there's a requirement for how close you can put the wires together. So like you can't put more than two sets of the wiring for your house. You can't put more than two of them next to each other for longer than like 6 inches or something. So you have to separate them out, and you'll see up in the rafters, there'll be like little holes that separate the wire bundles. And if they get too close together, they heat up, and it reduces you have to derate the rating for the cable. Well, essentially that's what's happening with the plasma vortex. When it gets to the vortex, that's where the current increases and goes higher, and that causes it to heat up. So it shows up warm on the infrared. And so you see these three little dots moving around, but they're actually the vortexes of three little vortexes that are interacting with each other. And they're basically a plasma ball. Someone, like kind of like ball lightning, but in the atmosphere. But they're not, you could see when I did the real close up that they go in and out of existence. They're not like stable. So from the distance, they look like they're stable, but you have to really get close up to see that they're a natural phenomena. I suspect that two of the other, the A10 one, where you had the single hot spot, what I suspect was going on there, again, I looked at the space weather report, and it said right at that time that there was a hole in Earth's magnetic field for about a 2-hour period that opened up. And if you remember in that one, you could see it looked like rain. It was like raining in the background, and it was coming in and out. Well, that's because all the cosmic rays were coming in because there was no shielding. So there was no magnetic shielding protecting us from the incoming cosmic rays. And then the other one was the not the La Bruja, the rubber duck one. I also found, which was cold again. I found that was also associated with a coronal mass ejection. But the odd thing about that one is there were no sunspots at all on the sun. It was totally blank. And then the one with, I think it's La Bruja, the other cold one, I couldn't find any solar events, so that one remains a mystery to me. But the fact that it's cold on the IR, how do you explain cold? Is there anyone have any ideas why UAPs would be showing up as colder than the ambient background?
Yeah, I mean, I have several. I mean, the most obvious is they're absorbing energy from the surrounding environment, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so you could have, I mean, if we're just going down a list of reasons, right? Another one could be optical cloaking.
Or I was thinking maybe it's an anti-reflectance coating,
Yeah, could be
kind
an
of like a Mylar balloon. Everybody always says, "Oh, it's a Mylar balloon," you know.
It could be temporal as well. They could be operating at a different rate. So the heat that they're giving off is not the same heat that we are observing.
Well, like for example, if it was like a piece of ice or something that was cold, it wouldn't be stable. It would change over time, I would think.
Yeah. Now I should mention David Perez just joined us, and David, if you can hang on maybe just about 5-10 minutes, then I would love to be able to start your presentation a little early. And I should apologize again for the scheduling thing. Regulars here know that we rarely stick to our schedules, even though we plan them immaculately in advance. So
I see James has got his hand up.
yeah, James, do you have a question for Michael?
Well, it was just saying about the cold.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not a mathematician or a scientist. I'm actually an artist, so I'm good with pictures. But I remember I'm just interested in all this sort of stuff, and I remember watching a presentation where a guy was talking about passing an electric current, high voltage current, between two light poled magnets, and the wire went really cold, so much so he got frostbite on his finger. He had to go to hospital.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I could speak a little bit to that. In the mythology, I would call it the mythology of anti-gravity, right? Although that word has kind of fallen out of favor. But in the mythology of this community, one of the common characteristics of a lot of experiments, people report when things fly off, when they reduce weight, they lose weight, they run cold. Like the Searle effect generator is one example of that. Lifters run cold. Now there could be there could be many different reasons for that. For example, okay, in the case of lifters, it makes a lot of sense. They run cold because high voltage ions in the air penetrate boundary layers. So if you take like just as an example, your body, right? You have a boundary layer of warm air around your skin, and the hair on your arm, whether or not you have hair, but that helps to ensure that follows you when you move your arm through the air, right? So you're always surrounded by a little bit of air that's warmer than the rest, you know, that unless you're in like a hurricane that blows that boundary layer away. But so ions will penetrate that, and they're fast moving and they pick up energy from around them. So, you know, there are lots of different reasons that in the case of a lifter, where you've got high voltage currents, they run cold. And that's something I've seen and documented
So would
many times.
the gimbal video be an example of that? You know, it's hot on the IR, but then there's a cold region, what Mick West called glare.
Could be.
But but it didn't make sense to me, because if it was glare, why would it show up as cold? So I think that you might be on the right track, that there's some kind of ionization process going on that absorbs energy at a constant rate.
Yeah, and it penetrates the boundary layer too. And that's something, and the boundary layer part was, and in fact, you guys, I don't know if you remember this, it wasn't a giant rumor, but there had been numerous people, I think Paul Violette was one of them, who had said the B-2 bomber uses anti-gravity, and they said, well, why is that? Well, because the B-2 uses high voltage, and they said, here are the high voltage strips along the leading edge of the wings. Okay, and I looked at that and said, well, maybe it's not an anti-gravity thing. Maybe they're trying to manipulate the boundary layer. The reason that you would want to do that is, in the case of the B-2 bomber, even if the skin of the craft is radar invisible, if it's pushing air in front of it, Doppler radar is going to pick up that air, right? So you want to reduce that boundary layer as much as possible.
So you want to make it appear to not there's not a wake there. You want to make the wake disappear.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. And actually you could do that.
You make it gradual, right? You make it a gradual wake. So instead of an abrupt barrier, it's kind of spread out. So
yeah, because a normal aircraft, right? And I'm gonna get in trouble for even mentioning this, but under Siege 2, the one on the train, right? He's trying to target the B-2 bombers with a satellite-based weapon, and you know, and the Pentagon guys are like, yeah, well, good luck with that. That's our latest and greatest. And he doesn't target the planes, he targets the wake that they create, and he's able to see them with that, right? Using Doppler radar from space. So in real life, I'm sure radar systems are similar. So the way around that would be you eliminate or at least reduce that boundary layer. And you can actually do that with just a high voltage on the leading edge of the wing. And then you can create that high voltage using what's called the TT Brown flame jet generator. And basically I'm going way off tangent here, but it is a mechanical electromechanical, or it's a chemical mechanical separation of charge. So what you do is you inject like 15,000 volts at a high amperage into the exhaust of the jet engine. And then you have a trailing pickup for it. And when it picks that up later, the actual exhaust increases that voltage to 100,000 or 1,000,000 volts. So you're actually using the weight of the engine to mechanically create high current, high voltage. And you can just run that back to the front of your wings.
So it's basically creating an artificial toroidal plasma, just like we're observing naturally, is what I'm hearing.
Could be, yeah.
And so basically that's my hypothesis. A lot of the so-called UAP technology that is artificially created is based on natural phenomena that we can observe.
Yeah. So that's one reason for things running cold. Look, you know what? Let me go to Josh, and Josh had a question for Michael, and then at the top of the hour we will go to David.
Go for it, Josh.
It looks like Josh is still having mic problems, sir.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, must have been something with this. So you said that the decay rate changes like a day before a solar flare, and that. So I was wondering if you thought that it could that could impact something like the decay rate of thorium, and that's where the radiation is coming in to fill the lower electron shells in an ionized gas, and that's what's creating the plasma.
Well, I would think thorium would not be a high concentration, enough concentration in the atmosphere for that to be the effect of thorium.
Right.
There are other radioisotopes that are aerosoled that would be affected.
Okay, so you think that the radioactive material has to be aerosoled?
Well, it's probably some kind of closed loop system. It has to do with the surface of the planet, what's going on in the atmosphere, and what's going on in the upper atmosphere. So it would have to be some kind of closed loop phenomena. I would think it wouldn't be like just like a random thing for it to be able to sustain that plasma vortex that we could see it for that long a period of time.
Okay.
The
I
other
have
thing
seen,
that made me think it was plasma was at one point it appeared to be they appeared to be following the Apache aircraft.
Mhm.
And my question to the pilots was, well, do Apaches ever get hit by lightning? And they said, well, yeah, all the time. So, I look for what I call artificial intelligence, evidence artificial intelligence. And with the Tic Tac video, for example, it's obvious that there's something artificial going on there in the space around the Tic Tac itself. You can see the phenomena, and it doesn't look natural. It looks artificial.
so I have seen some of these videos in the past, and I've actually seen the Apache video just like a week ago when it was on a YouTube channel, and they actually quoted you in the video. Yeah, they did. So there was one video that I saw, it was actually on Expedition X on the Discovery Channel, where they actually filmed this. They didn't know what it was, but it was these similar types of bright lights in the sky zipping around, and they had no explanation. They just called it a UFO. But the reason that they went to this specific location is because apparently it happens in that location often enough that they were able to go there and film it.
Cool. Well,
So
again,
in
there
that
might
case-
be something in that area where you have the right combination with terrestrial, geology, geological features in combination with atmospheric phenomena that will repeat there.
Exactly, yeah. And in that particular case,
Kind of like Skinwalker Ranch, for example, comes to mind.
So I don't remember the name of the mountain, but it's the episode of Expedition X on UFOs. So you could go find it and find it
Cool.
that specific mountain. So that's why I asked about thorium, because I was like, well, maybe there's thorium in the mountain or something like that.
Oh
Or
yeah, well
it could be
that could
something
be.
else.
That could be, yeah. There could be something, like I said, you need all three things to sync up for it to work, I would
Right,
think.
which is why it seems so random, is because it's these three sort of separate things that nobody's really paying attention to, and they have to converge. Like all three things have to be happening at the same time.
I think what I did that was new is I didn't just limit it to, hey, what I could see. I looked at other sources of information, like the space weather was real useful, because they tell you what's going on every day, and they keep a record, and you can go back and you can look at that data and see the actual data. So,
And that's an experiment that I think more people should work with, right? I mean, that seems like I've heard that a number of times, that before a CME, I think I read something about that online. It's well documented and it's very poorly understood. It would be really interesting if somebody did something with that.
Yeah, I've always thought that this specific phenomenon was related to space weather, and that's why it seems so unpredictable.
yeah.
Awesome. Well, it is 3 p.m. Everybody, let me do this. Let me put this on gallery view. Let's everybody give Michael Boyd a giant hand. Michael, thank you for demoing the videos. I know this was ad hoc. If you have something more structured that you want to do in the future, let me know. I'm glad that we were able to get you on.